Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Healing the Spirit. This is an episode that will share some guidance for the week based on the energy of the astrology. This is for the week of August 10, 2026. And this is where I geek out into more of the specifics of the astrology. So if you haven't listened to the monthly episode, it is relatively compact. I believe this months is about like 15 minutes or so. I really invite you to do so that you can kind of get a sense of the overall arc of the month and the themes that are really present as we walk through the month that can be really beneficial for you to pay attention to. If you benefit from this work and you feel excited about supporting the work of me sharing these weekly episodes, you can head on over to our Substack and support us financially for as little as $5 a month. You'll receive bonus episodes. You'll have the chance to ask your questions for quarterly Q&A that I'm doing, and you'll also get access to so much more. Okay, this week, Venus and Mercury will be having conversations with each other and with the outer planets. So let's first talk a bit about Venus and Libra. Venus entered Libra on the 6th last week, and this week begins with Venus trining Pluto, opposing Neptune, and trining Uranus sometime between the 10th and the 11th. And then we also have Mercury kind of mirroring some of the same movements, where Mercury opposes Pluto on the 11th, Mercury trines Neptune on the 11th as well, and then on the 12th, Mercury will sextile Uranus. And of course, in all of this, we have Venus also having that sextile with Mercury, right? Because Venus is domicile in Libra and Mercury is going to be in Leo. So overall, the invite here is to really pay attention to your own heart when you're having a conversation with others and when you're having a conversation with the collective. Conversations are happening all the time. In a sense, all of our lives are a bunch of different conversations overlapping, happening at the same time, because we live in a relational universe. One way to understand how the world works is through the imagery of a web. And we know this through ancient teachings and traditions, right? From, ancient Greece to ancient Hindu traditions, we know that the universe has always been visualized as a web. So when there's a little thing that drops in one part of the web, the entire web can feel the vibrational relationship or repercussion of that, right? But something is changing in the way that we understand conversations. We are at a moment of great expansion. I don't think many of us are even aware of how profound the shift that is currently happening. We are living our own mundane lives. We are looking at just a couple steps ahead. That's really as much as we can look to the future. But I think that in the future, like in the far, far distant future, our descendants will look back at this moment and ask, what was happening with these people? I think from the perspective of the future, our lives now are so fascinating because we're really at a threshold moment. And we're not talking about some tiny little threshold. We're talking about a change in the way that we are seeing the world, in the way that we are seeing ourselves as a species. And many of us, truth be told, we don't know, right? Cognitively, we can't use our minds to even figure out or imagine what the shift is all about, but we can feel it in our bodies. Who among us have felt a kind of energetic disruption in our sleep, in the way that we relate to the dream world? Because I have, and I think that in the past month, this has gotten louder and louder with all the movements that have been happening with, this is really symbolized and reflected through the movement of the outer planets, right? We know that all the outer planets are now solidly in a new sign, and that's really impacting the energy of how we're doing things. If you listen to how I was talking about the astrology even a year ago, or I think maybe more fun to see like 2 years ago, I was talking in a very different energy because, and it took me some time to even be able to talk about the current energy because I needed time to recalibrate my own system to be able to let this energy move through me. We are all on our own personal path of evolution, right? And I think we're really seeing how this new energy is coursing through us simply by way of what happens when we look at the astrology. To massively oversimplify, we're moving from codependency and hyper independence, which are really two sides of the same coin, right? Into interdependence. Codependency is I need you to be okay so I can feel okay with myself, right? Codependency is saying, I can't be okay unless you feel okay, you know? Hyperdependence exists on the other end of the spectrum. It's, I'm going to willfully turn away from you so I can hear myself. I'm going to pretend that you don't exist so I can do the thing I need to do. And both of those are born out of resistance. And it's not reflective of the true nature of reality, which is interdependence. And interdependence is about recognizing that the universe operates on the principle of abundance. And abundance means my wellness is entangled with yours. I can't fully be free if you're not fully free. But me practicing being free is going to also invite you to step up your game so you can find freedom too, right? This is a hugely different orientation than I can't be fully free if you're not fully free. So let me throw myself into the ditch with you and we'll figure out how to be free together. That's not interdependence. That's codependency, right? Interdependence is about me stepping my game up so that you can also step your game up. You can see this with top level athletes, right? They actually love to see their opponents on the field playing their best game so that they can really bring it on. The other day, I was watching, I'm also going to make the parallel here with performers, with musicians. The other day, I was watching this VH1 Divas Live from, I think, the 90s or like early 2000s. The very first one that has Celine Dion, Aretha Franklin, Mariah Carey, like all the legends, right? All the greats. And you can see how incredible it was that all these women, who are powerhouses when it comes to singing, they're not holding back. They're fully like in their power, right? And you can see that they just bring out the best in one another, and that in essence is what true collaboration really is. It's not about holding yourself back so that other people can become empowered. No, it's about you really stepping up your game, really being full on, right? Because the more full on you are, the more full on I can be. I'm going to reflect back to you what freedom looks like for me so you can invite yourself into your own version of freedom, right? This is not about competition. This is not about comparison. This is about truly evolving into a new way of being. You can replace this idea of stepping into freedom with stepping into love, stepping into abundance, stepping into truth. It's the same principle, right? Because all of it is true spirit, true frequency, source consciousness. The outer planets are bringing in new stories. So Pluto in Aquarius is about power of the people. It's about recognizing that it is really our individual energies and the choices we make as individuals that truly power up the systems and the cultures we live in, right? So if we choose to shift our individual energies, to shift our choices, and to expand our capacity to recognize what possibilities are available to us, that could really shift our entire civilization, because the civilization has been powered by us. Neptune in Aries is about dissolving the idea of the individual, the concept of the individual, because in reality, consciousness is one. We're all simply fractals of the one mind. And what we do to one person is what we do to everybody, right? Uranus in Gemini is about weaving a new relationship with information, with insights. Uranus is really disrupting old patterns of communications. And I think the shift from Uranus being in Taurus for the past 7 years or so into Gemini, to me, is the most exciting and probably the hardest to describe. But finally, I feel like I'm beginning to understand in my body what that means, because Uranus and Taurus has been about healing our relationship with the body, healing our relationship with the three-dimensional, healing our relationship with the land, right? Recognizing, at least within our consciousness, that we are not separate from the land, that older ways of being, more indigenous ways of being, have secret codes for us that we need to reawaken inside of us, right? Not to return to the old times, but to create the future. The future is going to incorporate elements of the past, of the ancient, because that's just how the universe works, you know? And so on a mundane level, we're seeing a huge shift in terms of the speed at which information travels now that Uranus is in Gemini. But that was only made possible through us robustifying our relationship with our body. Now our bodies are able to move frequencies at a faster rate. And we are seeing this reflected in the technological advances that are happening in the collective, right? The technological advances are not happening separate from what is inside of us. Some of the ways that it's being wielded is not life-giving. That is true. However, the innovation itself, right? The shift in consciousness, our willingness to accept that things can move at a faster rate, that all these boundaries are dissolving, right, is actually an opportunity. So it is important for us to not hang on to the past, to not cling on to versions of the past that we are trying to recreate. It's important for us to get on with the program so that we can use our awareness, our consciousness, our commitment to truth and love and a life-giving future, a life-supporting future, to participate in the process of evolution and to decide which way is it going. You know, do we want to see the climate catastrophe that a lot of scientists are talking about? Because if we don't, we absolutely have the power to shift our trajectory. We absolutely have the power to empower new innovations to get people out of old ways of being that are dying anyway, right? It's not about resisting the advances of technology. It's about using it, right? Advances in technology are neutral in nature, right? It's just currently being wielded by people who are not conscious, people who are not spiritually minded, people who don't understand mystical truth. So then your job is to step up so you can participate in that game and really change the conversation. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? Conversations are happening in multi directions, right? Conversations are happening through each of us deciding to participate or resisting our participation. And when you're in resistance, you are not in source consciousness. You are not listening to your own spirit, because spirit doesn't wait. Spirit doesn't hold back. Spirit is like, okay, yes, and, right? We live in a yes and universe. And so you can move at the new speed and figure out how to channel your energy so you can see the changes that you want to see. And that can happen in such a subtle way. You don't have to climb up to the rooftop and make it known to everybody what you're going to do. You don't have to do that. You just have to do the thing. Do the thing. Find the people that are resonating at the same frequency as you and collaborate. And follow your excitement, because that is really what's going to shift reality quickly for you and for others around you. This week, the invite is to really practice being relational, because Venus in Libra and Mercury in Leo are the two planets that are activating these outer planet themes. That we're going to see these themes really being channeled through Venusian and Mercurial areas of life, right? Venus rules conversations, Venus rules relationality, and Mercury rules the exchange of information, right? And Mercury, whenever Mercury is present, it is absolutely crucial to make sure that we're on the same page, because Mercury can move, move, move. Mercury loves moving the plot along, but with Venus being present there, the work is to make sure we're on the same page, and we're not kind of adding on fluff onto the essence that we're really trying to shine through here, right? Libra is all about conversations. At its finest, Libra energy understands that rushing into conclusions only leads to bad decisions. Libra sometimes gets a bad reputation for being indecisive, but Libra is actually an energy that is inherently sensitive to when not enough information is at our disposal to make good, fair, just decisions. Libra is more interested in being tasteful and tactful rather than being fast and impulsive. And when we really get into what is the highest form of artfulness, that one can aspire to within conversations, we'll quickly get to how it's really about truth, right? It's about getting to the truth of the matter. Because once we get to the truth of the matter in conversations, it strips away all pretenses. It strips away all the fluff, right? When truth is present, there's nowhere to hide. And this is a great thing, because true connection can really only happen when people stop lying to themselves and to each other. When people stop trying to feed half-truths, because half-truths are energetic leaks. So, yes, sometimes social graces can be important to Libra, but it's only important to the extent that it facilitates truth to be told. And truth ultimately brings people closer together. Truth brings ultimate harmony. So here are some practical ways to work with this energy. I have three very practical, everyday steps for you. The first one is practice asking at least 2 questions before making a statement. So when you find yourself in conversations and somebody's saying something and you notice yourself wanting to respond right away, give yourself permission to ask them at least a couple questions before you say your perspective, because you tell people exactly what you think, because you might be surprised by the answers that you're receiving. You might find that as you allow yourself to listen to people's answers to your question, that it actually shifts what you wanted to say. Maybe it enriches it, or sometimes it also primes the other person to be able to actually listen to what you have to say. So there's a couple components here. One is you really calibrating yourself and your energy to be in sync with the other person's energy. And then the other piece here is about that person also syncing up with you, right? Which is just 2 sides of the same coin. And the second practice I'll share with you is pay attention to how much you're speaking versus how much you're listening and perceiving. There's a tendency when we are nervous, when we feel insecure about our relationships or about ourselves and what we have to share, what we have to say, to kind of go all out with speaking, because in a way it's easier, right? To just say stuff is so much easier than really being present. And when you're fully present, it will become clear to you what is here to be said and what is not here to be said. You know, what is available and not available. And this has nothing to do with speaking out your truth, because in truth, speaking out your truth without attunement is it's really just one side of the spectrum, right? One small piece of the continuum. True wisdom and true relationality is both ecosystemically aware of everything that's happening and also connected to the self, connected to the truth of the self, right? So as you are giving yourself permission to be more present, you will find that there's more of a balance between speaking and listening and perceiving and asking questions. And finally, know when enough is enough. So, what I mean by this is sometimes in conversations, when we are connecting to other people, we're not fully in touch with our own bodies and our capacities. There is such a thing as having a social battery, right? All of us, especially when physically we're feeling uncomfortable or we feel like we need a little bit of rest, we need to charge ourselves and kind of come back to our own energy. Sometimes we do need to remove ourselves from situations. So ask yourself intermittently while you're with your loved ones, as you're spending time, does this still feel good? Do I want to do this? Right? This is often do not pass go that I see a lot of people skipping. That when it comes to relating to others, we can sometimes fall into immediately just going according to the social script rather than really asking ourselves, do I want to do this? Because when we shift into that, when we shift into really consenting to the kind of social interactions that are available to us, there's something so powerful that starts to happen because our full energy is behind it, right? We fully want to be there. We fully decide to be there. And something transformative happens within the conversation. So this week, the power, the transformation that the outer planets are bringing forth is really going to shine through in conversations. And one of the best ways as an everyday mystic, as a creative mystic, to be able to experience this is to have the conversations, to be in relationships with other people. And most likely, you will not receive the full extent of it unless you're also bringing a little bit of skill, right? So that's really what this is all about. I also want to briefly mention that on the 12th, we have this total solar eclipse in Leo. This is not a subtle lunation at all. We have not only a solar eclipse, we also have the sun in Leo, which is where the sun is at home in traditional astrology. And the moon is also in Leo, answering to the sun. Right? So this is all about the sun. This is a great time to seed powerful intention and to also, if you're familiar with your chart, find a house where Leo is and ask yourself, is there anything that is ready to be let go of so that I can make space for this new powerful intention? Some questions to contemplate is, are you prioritizing your heart? Leo is all about being centered in the heart. Leo is about listening to your heart and following the wisdom of your heart. You can do a vibe check. Is this relationship, is this project, is this endeavor, is this contract still aligned with my heart? In other words, where is my heart? If my heart is no longer in the thing that I committed to, that's cool, right? And it's time to move on. It's time to have the conversations with people. Venus in Libra is really going to help with this because Venus in Libra is about being fair in conversations, right? It's about telling the other person, it's about communicating the truth, like the real heart of the matter with consideration, with kindness, with relationality, right? Being really relational with that process. And finally, you can also ask, how can I feed my heart? How am I being asked to cultivate courage? My sense is that for some of you, you are at a point of pivoting into following your heart more, trusting your heart more, which is a process that has been happening for some time, but is finally really reaching a tipping point during this month. And your work is to put more wood in the fire, right? Your work is to put more of your energy, more of your intention into what your heart truly desires, what your heart cares about, right? You may not yet at a point where you can make the huge, big decisions. And often for many of us, we don't even have to make that decision because our energy will make that decision. When the time is right, it will simply shift. It will be as if you are entering a new room right now, and then the old is just being the rug is going to be pulled from right underneath you, and you don't even have to worry about it anymore because you're in a new space. So this is a much more powerful way of um, facilitating change rather than having to insist on, okay, I'm going to plan how to make this change, right? It's just you kind of saying on a deeper internal level, I'm ready for this change. Show me. Show me the next step. Show me the next step. And then eventually the next step, you will get to a point where your next step is going to be a leap. And at that moment, you're going to be so fully prepared for that leap. Not saying it's going to be easy, but you're going to be so fully prepared. Okay, I hope this helps you on your path. I'll return next week with more weekly guidance to anchor these insights into the astrology of August. And for those of you who would like to receive a reading, I am opening very limited spots for astrology readings throughout August and September. And I'll make sure to include the link in the bio for you if you would like to book some time with me, if you would like to see what's up for you. And I think these readings are really great investments, specifically for those of you who are entering into a new solar year, meaning if it's close to your birthday or if you are navigating like an important change, transformation, threshold in your life, we're going to be looking at the year ahead. And astrology is really such a fantastic tool for that, right? Because it helps you calibrate and really kind of get your energy behind where am I being called next? And really I use astrology as a tool, not as the Bible. Astrology is not like truth, right? But astrology can really help us become more efficient with our endeavors and with our energy. Okay. I look forward to seeing you for those of you who would like to work with me one-on-one. And I'm sending you so much love. Thank you so much for sitting here with me, and see you next week.